Welcome to the Ultimate Farm Wife podcast. On this channel, we're going to be discussing all things marrying a farmer, moving to the land, and becoming integrated with a family farming operation. Whether you're moving to the farm for the first time or whether you're moving back into a family farming operation, we discuss the ins and the outs of all of it. So let's jump into today's episode. Hi, and welcome to the farm. Today we're talking You've Married the Farmer, Now What? Nell. Welcome, Nell.
Hello, very excited to be here.
We are so glad to have caught up for this chat. So tell me a little bit about yourself, your family, and your farm.
Yeah, thank you. It's taken a bit to get here logistics-wise, but yeah, I'm Nell. I have my husband Clinton, and we've got 3 little girls. We've got a nearly 6-year-old, a nearly 4-year-old, and a nearly 2-year-old. So our life is very busy, and we are located on a cattle farm at Cassilis. So a very tiny community, but yeah, we absolutely love it here up in the hills.
Beautiful. So tell me a little bit about your farm. So it's cattle farming. What else do you do on farm?
Yeah, so no, we're purely we've got Angus speckle cattle, and we do our own breeding. We do a little bit of trade when we've got the feed, but we are actually a part of the property up here is actually a part of my family farm. So I grew up on property out at Hillston. So we still have property out there where my mum and dad and brother are. We work, in conjunction with them. So they've got a lot of the cropping side out there, and we literally have our cattle up here and some pastures and feed crops, but that's about it.
Perfect. And so how did you and your family end up being on that farm rather than part of the farm at Hillston?
Yeah, so my husband's originally from Corindai, and not long after we met, the opportunity came where my brother, he was living up here, and then he moved back to Hillston purely to help. We've got cotton crops out at Hillston, so to help my dad there with the irrigation. So, the opportunity came up, and I was living at Tamworth at the time doing some banking with NAB. And we just jumped at it, and we've been here now. We actually were talking about this the other day. This is our 9th year at Cassilis, and we just wouldn't change it for the world now.
Beautiful. So how did you meet your husband, and then how did you work out the original logistics of he was in Corindai, you're in Tamworth, which isn't far apart, and then how did you logistically move to where you are now?
Well, I think I was very lucky to meet my husband because he's not the biggest social person, but we actually met just one night out in Tamworth. So the stars aligned. And then, we were together for about 2 years before we made the decision to move over. And, I actually, at the time, I'd been working for NAB for a couple of years, and I just resigned and moved over here with no job to move to accept to the farm, and I was really excited about it actually, just to open the door and see what opportunities would come towards me. So there was a couple of months where we were both just working on the farm together, which was interesting.
I was going to say how precious.
We were so excited to move and start our life there. But I think, as everyone knows, all your listeners know, when you work with your partner on farm, it can be really challenging. So I eventually found a job at like a rural farm place where we sell all the produce and stuff like that. And then I also, when I did my uni degree, I did a dip ed on top. So I started doing some primary school teaching, and I just absolutely loved it. I just fell in love with primary school teaching. And that's, what I did until we had our family. So, and it was really nice for me to have my off-farm job and to then being able to help on weekends and things like that.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit about how you and your husband initially balanced life between the farm, your teaching, and then, later the extra additive of the family. How do you balance that when it was just the two of you? And then how do you now balance that with all of you on farm?
Very good question. I think, when it was just the two of us, we thought life was so busy and so hard. And now I look back and I'm like, wow, that was bliss. But we were both getting our heads around the property, because we hadn't, I didn't grow up here. I grew up at Hillston, which is very flat, and up here at Cassilis there are lots of hills. Clinton's, from his mum's side of the family, has property, and they're all up in the hills. So he's a hill man. He loves the mountains, so he was fine. It took us a good 12 months to get our head around how the properties worked and all of that sort of stuff. And then when we started our family, I think looking back, I thought it would be very different to how it is. And I think lots of rural mums will experience this, where you do feel like going into it, you think that life won't change that much. But for me, it was a very rude shock. And logistically, having my daughter, she was born in May, so freezing cold. It was the middle of the drought, actually. We were feeding nonstop. So it was actually a really tough time to have a newborn. And I'm quite isolated from my family there. My family is about over 6 hours away. So having that support network was really challenging as well. But I think it was me realising that my priority was my daughter. And then moving forward, I think each baby that's come in, you just realise that you're in a different season to where you were pre-babies, and you can't logistically do everything that you could do once before.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to dive into that a little bit more later, but I do want to go back to a point that you've made already, and that is adjusting to a farm you haven't grown up on. So Nell, how did you get to know the landscape? I remember the first time Ned took me out to our property out west, and he just said, I'll just drive till you hit a fence and then go north. Like, how did you go about familiarizing yourself with that block? Did you start with like an aerial view shot? Did you just map out the fences and just do hours on the bike looking around? How did you learn the property?
I think each time I got lost, I learned where I was. But not being able to visually see because of the hills was really hard. I thought I had my compass points right, but once I got up here, I was like, I have no idea where I am. It was just lots of driving when we were mustering, things like that. We were doing a lot of fencing at the time, so that probably helped. But where we were living, we also have another property about 15 minutes away. So I probably wouldn't go to that property as much. So then when we did go that way, it was a whole nother ball game of like, okay, where am I now? We did have the maps all out and just trying to logistically work out where the water ran and how the bores worked and all of that sort of stuff was, it was full on.
Yeah, it definitely is, particularly as you said, you didn't grow up in that place, so you weren't learning it from, a child's play perspective. It was all for work and mapping out stock routes and water. So that's good to know. So then you were talking about, adding your children to the farm and those priorities changing. So as those priorities changed on farm with each child, every day I know is not the same on farm. So as the years have progressed, what has your involvement with the kids and the farm look like? Like, I've seen some updated pictures on your Instagram with, the side-by-side and things like that. So how did you get from the two of you to the side-by-side with the five of you?
Yes. We definitely upgraded to a side-by-side, which was great. The four-wheeler, we ran out of space pretty quick. So, like I said, it's been tough. It's been really tough. And I think sometimes, especially social media, sometimes you see these rural mums that just seem to be doing it all. And sometimes you have those days where you're like, why can't I do that? And I'm, going to be very truthful. My girls will last literally maybe 15 minutes in the yards. It's too loud. It's too noisy. they get hungry, they get tired, they get like, it's just, I think, like I said earlier, it's just really surrendering to the fact that I'm not in that season where I can be physically helping as much as I used to. And I know that that will change. And I know when the girls are older, you know, I'm hoping that they'll want to do that with us. So for me, it's really been bringing it back to the base of the farm, the heart of the farm, which is the home, and really running it from there, raising our daughters. And I think for my husband and I to respect each other with that as well, that I've really struggled with not having that resentment of not being able to be out on farm as much as I would like to. So I think having that mutual respect of what he's doing and then what I'm doing has been a really big thing for us to work through as a couple. And we work through it every day, because there's definitely moments where I watch him ride off on his horse to muster and all I want to do is be there.
Yeah. I understand that, and I know that a lot of people listening will understand that. So it sounds like you and your husband have really communicated and worked on that. So what were some of the things that helped you focus on the heart of the home and focus on that change of season? What makes you feel fulfilled at home? Is it that, and still part of the farm?
Yeah, I think coming from, because it is a large family farm, so we've had like uncles and aunties and cousins all involved as well. So just in the last couple of years, I've been starting to do a lot more of the admin side and the reporting side of things, which has really, it's really helped me feel a part of it, especially when we have our big meetings, that I can contribute and I know what's going on. So I think that's been a really big thing for me. And I guess as well, I watched my mum. So it's actually the farm that we are on is actually my mum's family's farm. So it's gone through like my mum and then down to myself. And then I look at my three girls, and I want to show them that there is a different way of farming and they don't have to be physically out there all the time. And what we do here is so important. And I think showcasing that and role modeling that side is really important as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. Really love hearing that, you know, the farm is going through the female side as well, because that in itself is so unique. And I know that a lot of rural women think like, I physically can't do that role, so how do I belong on a farm? Like, where do I fit? So it's so nice to have heard that, you know, your mum and then yourself have found that position, and then that will then transfer into the kids. And it's really nice to hear that you are already thinking of that, even though they are so young. So that's so beautiful. So being able to do the books and things like that, what kind of introduction did you have into the books? And then how are you able to communicate that with, you know, your husband and your family?
Yeah, so we just recently sort of been doing a lot of training with our accountants using Xero, which has been incredible. We're really loving that system. Because we've got the property out at Hillston as well, there's a lot of cross communication. So we've set ourselves up using Office 365, where we've got lots of shared documents. We have weekly, monthly, quarterly meetings. Like we're really like our meetings have become really integrated into terms of how we actually operate, because they're now employees. So I think that's been being able to move things online has been really good, because then it doesn't matter if it's my sister-in-law or myself or my mum or my dad or my brother or Clinton, like we've all got access and we've all got ownership, which I think is really, really great. So yeah, we did a bit of and just setting up your systems, I think, is really important as well, and making sure people have access. We've actually just started using AgriWeb, which has been a really massive change for us as well, with the way that we run our stock and the grazing, and just being able to pull all your reports out of that's it's been a really good program to start using as well.
I love that. I am such a logistical and process-based person, and that just made me smile so much. Such a good setup. Has it always been like that, or you said it was recently changing to that? So what were the conversations that led into that being the system that you use? Like, how did you get that over time?
Yeah, it's been a long process. Like I said, it's the farm has had, like, it was my mum and then her brother and then her two sisters. So it's been going like from that down into our generation. So I guess with succession and things like that, all these sort of things come up, and it's just how can we make this work the best way possible. We've got a really good advisor that we use who actually chairs all our meetings, which that's just been an absolute game changer, because we are a family farm. There is so much emotion tied to it. And I think when you're making big decisions, having someone facilitate your meetings is really important, because they're there to keep you on track. You have the agenda, you know what you're working towards, and you're still allowed to feel all those emotions because they're real, but it's just being able to have someone to bring you back, I think, is really important. So it's been a long road. It has been a really long road, and I feel like where we're at now, we're really starting to move forward, which is great.
That's so great to hear. Nell, I want to focus on this a little bit more, because I think you're the first person I've had on the podcast who have had these processes and meetings set up and have spoken about, a facilitator, an outside facilitator being involved in the family farm. To me, that sounds like an incredible idea and opportunity. So how did you and the farm go about finding the right facilitator for you? Do you mind sharing their company or who they are? And then how do you and the family communicate with them, outside the meetings as well as inside the meetings? What's the setup there?
Yeah, so this all actually came by through, we started working through the Farm Owners Academy, which is a really great, like they lead you through all of these big decisions. There's a lot of personal development growth within it as well, which I think for farmers is very daunting. And I know my husband found it very hard, especially because he was doing it with my family, not his family. So that was really big as well. And I think you need to be really, when you're doing something like this, consider everyone's different personalities, because if you are in a family farm, everyone is different and we all work differently. So respecting that is huge. So Farm Owners Academy were who we originally started with. And then through that we finished that. So it's a course, and you go to lots of different learning days and things like that. And they really helped us with the number side of things. I think we hadn't had a lot of understanding of the numbers and budgeting and KPIs, and all this stuff was just so over our head. But once you start to get ownership over that, you really want to drive. Then you're really passionate about looking at the numbers. So from there, we then moved on to getting a farm advisor, I guess you would call them. So Richard Groom, and he facilitates our meetings via Zoom, because obviously we're location-wise, we're not all together as well, which is another aspect that's really tricky. So my husband and I, we always come in on a Zoom for the one-day meetings, which can be really hard, but it's still good just to still be there and see what we can see. And then we do our monthly Zooms with him where we do our budgeting, and he's just been amazing for our business moving forward. And we found out about Richard through other local families down at Hillston using him as well. So I think that's a really important thing. You need to have a good relationship with the person that you want to work with, and make sure that they suit your farm, because I think that's really important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic business opportunities, great setup. I know that you've said it's been a really long journey to get there. Do you mind saying how many years that's taken? Because things take longer on farms than people assume.
Well, Polly, my eldest daughter, is nearly 6. So I think, I'm just trying to remember, I think we started Farm Owners Academy when she was only little, like a baby. So, yeah. And there was lots of things happening previously before that as well. So it's been a long journey. And there's always, more things to do. So
absolutely. Really glad to hear that yourself and the family have taken that time to make the processes, to make everything so transparent, and that ownership on everyone. Love hearing that. Love hearing the business advisor. So with all of that experience and knowledge that you've gained being on farm and going through all this, is there any advice, tips and advice that you would specifically give to people moving to the farm for the first time?
I think I think my biggest advice would probably be, if it's a female marrying into a family farm as well, is you just need to tread lightly as you can. I think, you need to come in and you need to, like, this family has been growing this business for however many years. So you might feel deep inside that something should change, but you really need to just kind of just soak it all in and see how they run it, see why they run it that way. And then I guess the biggest thing, and I know everyone talks about this, it's just communication, and it's really having that respectful relationship with everybody and being able to communicate in a way that's, like I said, respectful to everyone's emotions, and making sure that you go around things the right way, I think, is hard.
Yeah, and taking that patience and that time, because things do take a little while, and sometimes you need to plant the seed and other times you need to listen.
And I think we're noticing now, like, not even the difference between the generations, but the difference between siblings, everyone's growth is different. Everyone's risk is different. Like, it's really, when you've got multiple people within your organisation, it's really being, respectful of different personalities. So,
Yeah. If you're enjoying listening along with us today and learning some tips, tricks, and advice from our ladies, then please like, subscribe, and even share this interview with someone who you think would need to hear this information, or who might benefit from other interviews done right here on this channel. Now let's get back into today's episode.
If you do see something, I think it's really important to then be able to, talk about it and give some advice as well.
And is that sometimes learning the opportunity to talk about it, like learning when is the right time to have that conversation?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's been, for us, having these meetings, it gives you an opportunity to talk, and it gives everybody in the room an opportunity to talk. So things aren't being decided on down the paddock in the ute, they're being decided on around a table where we're all communicating and all talking about the different opportunities and the risks and all of that sort of stuff.
Now, you mentioned risks a couple of times. Everyone who is part of your family farming operation has different risks. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I guess what I see within our family, and I know that everyone would have this different experience as well, but being able to want to take risks, as in, maybe going into more debt than someone else feels comfortable with, doing something a bit outside of the square. So if you had never traded cattle before, maybe if we take a risk on that, I think it's just, everyone has a different appetite for it. And I think that's really, being mindful of that. So one of the things that we do, like, we have a policy where at the start we've said where we're willing to go in different situations, and then we always come back to that policy. So if something comes up, we look back at it and go, well, this is where we said we felt comfortable. Why is this a good enough reason where we might change that? If not, we stick to where we are, sort of thing. So
yeah, absolutely. Really enjoy that. And really enjoy hearing that, because so often within family farming businesses, everybody's individual risk is sometimes not accounted for, and sometimes there's an overarching decision maker, and then everyone sort of underneath that then has to deal with the risk later. So that's so glad to hear that there has been an assessment made on that and that's reviewed back too. So really great to hear that. In supporting this podcast and YouTube channel, we want to make sure that you are not going home empty-handed. Not only will you be getting tips, tricks, and advice from our stories and from our content that we're putting out, continue to support the channel by purchasing Tupperware using the link below. Tupperware helps you in the kitchen and down the paddock. Whether you are looking at food storage, kitchenware, servingware, items for the kids, lunchboxes, or whether you're wanting to be eco-friendly minded, then check out Tupperware using the link below and selecting Karcher Williams as your consultant at checkout. That will help support this podcast and you get Tupperware in return. So thanks, guys. Let's jump back into today's interview. Now, earlier in our conversation, you mentioned that having the girls and how that has changed the family farming operation for you and in the season of life you are. You said that it was very difficult. So is there advice that you would give to other rural mums who are having children on the farm? What are the things that made it difference for you? Mentally, health-wise, adaptability-wise, and what made it easier for the kids?
I think my number one thing is community. Like, you need to build a community wherever you go. And I think once you find that community, then that place then becomes home, because once you have that support around you, like I said, location-wise, I am, away from my family. So building this incredible community around me, and I've got so many beautiful other mothers that started to have kids after I had my first, was a really, being able to lean on that has been amazing. And you need to make an effort for that as well. Like, you can't just move somewhere and just expect to, your village to pop up. Like, you really need to make an effort to find that village and work on it. My other big thing is, which I've only probably, maybe in the last 12 months really tried to work on, is just surrendering to where you're at. Like, I have to drive 50 minutes to drive my middle girl to preschool. And if I'm always annoyed at that, then it's always going to be something that annoys me. So I just surrender to that's the fact that where we live, and 50 minutes isn't far compared to so many other people. So just surrender to the fact that that is what you need to do. And then it just becomes it doesn't become as big of a problem as you make it out to be. I think sometimes just surrendering to the fact that that's it. Similar to, the stages of the girls, like the tantrums that we have, it's like you just surrender to it and this too shall pass. Yes. And then personally, I think like I said, my youngest is turning 2. So I've probably just started to focus on myself and my health. And I think having something off farm is really, really important for mums, and having separate hobbies to your partner is really important as well, because you need that separate time. Like, I think you really need to. Last season I played netball with a group of ladies, and I hadn't played since university, so I did nearly break both my knees, but gosh, it was amazing just to have something for me. And I think that's really important, just having something for yourself as you, not as mum or wife, just as you.
Absolutely agree with all of that. And Nell, with the car trips or jobs that you go, oh, I don't want to do that. Oh, that's 50 minutes I have to be in the car. So when you surrender to that and you're okay, it is what it is. This is where we are. Do you do other things within that time? Do you use that, maybe the car trip home, to just relax and do something that you enjoy? Or do you turn that into a practical space of, I actually have 50 minutes in the car, I'm going to call someone and have a chat to them who I haven't spoken to, if you've got the luxury of cell service?
Yeah.
What do those moments look like for you? If you can give a couple of examples within that, this is a hard task I don't want to do. How am I going to surrender to it and make it better?
Yeah, I think, like you said, cell service is a big factor around here. So sometimes the phone calls don't last as long as I'd like them to. But I think, I try and pick for that drive what I'm going to do. I've recently started an online business, and being able to have that 50 minutes in the car has actually been amazing, because I get to listen to lots of replays of webinars, any coaching calls that I've missed. Sometimes it will be, I'll chat to another mum that's reaching out to talk about the business. So other days I literally just put on country music and sing my heart away. Or I love listening to podcasts, which is how I found your podcast. So I think you got to, whatever you need for that day, I think, I always try to yeah, I do try and get a coffee for the drive home. I think
those little treats. I was speaking to a friend the other day, and she was saying, I no longer do the bills at the kitchen table before I leave the farm. She said, I now scoop them all up and I go to a cafe and I sit with my coffee and I sort my bills, and then I work out the logistics for the town day and then I go do it.
Yes. I've recently, on a Tuesday, I'm kid free, and I've been taking my stuff with me to town, and I'll do like a walk or some sort of exercise, and then I get a coffee, and then I go to the local library. And it's amazing what you can get done when you are not in your own home, because you're not distracted by the washing or the cooking or the garden. I quite like just having that one day where I'm like, right, this is it, and I can achieve what I need to achieve. And I've got good phone service and internet service. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Now, that brings me to the end of any of my official questions for today's podcast. So is there anything else that you would add to any other people who are moving to the farm about tips, advice, tell me all. Anything else you want to add?
I think I've said I think what I've said is everything that I believe. I think really my biggest one is wherever you go, make sure you find that community, because they're the people that you will have around you, for the rest of your life and for the rest of your children's life. And I think, in good times and bad times, when you've got a beautiful community around you, like you can do anything. And just being fully aware of how lucky we actually are. I take it for granted. And I think some mornings it's like, wow, this is where we get to raise our kids, and this is the life they get to live. And I think being, fully aware of that is really important.
We have covered so much in this interview, and I have really enjoyed chatting to you. So thank you so much for coming on and just sharing your story, sharing your experience. I know I will take away some great information from it, and I know that others who are listening will as well. So thank you so much.
No, thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for your podcast. I think it's such a great thing for other rural mums to have. So thank you for doing this for everyone else.